Welcome, everyone, to TJ and the Grumpy Old Man, the sports podcast, again, where I'm joined with the Grumpy Old Man. They say there is no shame in his game because he is always the same.
That's me.
Grump, how are you doing this fine evening, Sunday evening, right here as we close off the NFL regular season, Week 18?
Wild happenings in the NFL.
You talk about a drama-filled day. I almost couldn't tear myself from the TV.
And it's not over yet.
I was about to say, right? You've got a situation this evening to where you've got the Los Angeles Chargers playing off against the Los Angeles Raiders, determining who's going to make the playoffs. I mean, technically, they could both just have a gentleman's agreement and tie, and they both make it in.
That's what I'd go for. As soon as they found out that Pittsburgh won today, I would have made the phone call, owner to owner. Hey, what do you think?
Oh, you mean head coach to head coach, right?
Or owner to owner, whatever. Just make sure the teams get in touch with one another. Hey, we tie, we're both in.
And I was about to say here, you talk about a lot of teams that were fighting. They had to win today in order to make it into the NFL playoffs. And the 49ers were an example of that. Man, oh man, what a game. It was trending all over Twitter. Before we get too deep into today's podcast, this is a twice a week sports podcast where we cover all things sports and we just have a good time shooting the shit. So we cover it on Thursdays at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and on Saturdays at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That being said, when there's big sporting events, we cover those too. Like tomorrow, we're going to be going live during the college football playoff at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, probably a little before, just to go ahead and get our predictions in and everything of that nature. But any type of big sporting event, we go live during those too. So to make sure you don't miss out on any of the action, this is pertinent. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube, like on Facebook, and follow on Twitter, Grumpy Old Man.
Yes. Live streaming tomorrow's game. It'll be fun. And I'm sure we're going to talk about that later in the show. I let you steer the ship, TJ, whichever direction you want to go in.
Well, let's first start by talking about this. I mean, the 12 o'clock spot, the noon spot here for the NFL. Man, oh man, you talk about the Steelers facing off against the Ravens. Now the Ravens, you talk about how quickly the tide and momentum has changed. The Ravens obviously had, injury problems this season, but what NFL team doesn't have injury issues? They lose a plethora of running backs at the very start of the season, Gus Edwards, J.K. Dobbins, and they're still able to, again, put together a pretty solid season. Lamar Jackson goes out, and at the time period before he went out, they were one of the top teams in the NFL. I'd argue that I can't remember the exact record, but they were penciled in to make the playoffs, and you just see the fall from grace. And today they have an overtime matchup against the Pittsburgh Steelers. And how did that end, Grum?
It ended with Big Ben leading them down the field, converting a number of third downs. I know they had the cake in the dressing room. Hey, Ben, thanks for the memories. They were not expecting to make the playoffs. And just remember, the only way that they could get in, they had to have so many things happen for them to qualify.
They had to beat the Ravens, and they had to have the Jags beat the Indianapolis Colts, which we'll get to in a second too.
And just think about it. So they had the congrats on your retirement, Ben. That cake is in there. So now I think the battle cry for the Steelers for the rest of the year is going to put the cake in the fridge. I think that's what it's going to be from here on out.
Gotcha. Now,
Steelers fans.
No, yeah. So the Ravens lost their last 6 games of the regular season.
Yeah. And when they were 8-3, they were the number 1 seed in the AFC. They were the number 1 seed in the AFC.
Yep, they were flying high. Number 1 seed in the AFC. They beat the Cleveland Browns. And I mean, have you looked at how those games transpired? And I'll ask you this. I obviously, I'm not a guy who wants to make rash decisions or anything like that. Like, hey, coach should be under the hot seat. How much blame does Jim Harbaugh get for this here, Grumpy? John Harbaugh.
We've talked about it previously when it happened in the moment. To me, you're talking about the first Steelers game and then the Packers game. You know what you do? You take the extra point and you go to overtime. And instead, twice he goes for a 2-point conversion to win the game at the end, and they lose. I just think that's just so dumb. Anytime you see a coach trying to do stupid things, it winds up biting him in the butt at the end. And it killed Baltimore's season. Really did.
think about this. 8-3, John Harbaugh is moving, right? They're penciled in to make the playoffs. And again, it's not all about making the playoffs. It's about winning the Super Bowl, right? Making the playoffs is important, but it's all about winning the Super Bowl. You got to make the playoffs first in order to do that. They lose to the Steelers on December 5th by 1 point. They lose to the Browns on December 12th by 2 points. They lose to the Packers on December 19th by 1 point. Then they get, I'm talking about, ran out of the stadium on the day after Christmas on December 22nd by the Bengals. They lose by 20. They lose by 1 point on a last-second touchdown catch by Odell Beckham Jr. when the Rams score. And they lose in overtime today to the Steelers. I mean, you look at how many they failed on different 2-point conversions right towards the end of the game that cost them, and they gave up a touchdown on the final drive and the field goal in overtime today. And you just think to yourself, Jesus, anything that could go wrong for the Ravens fans and the Ravens this season did go wrong.
I'm not a Ravens fan, so good job, John Harbaugh. Good job knocking your team out of the playoffs. It's just so dumb. I never understand the going for 2 at the end of a game instead of letting it go to overtime. It makes no sense to me. You try to extend games. That's what you do. You don't want to, like, everything comes down to this play. No. Unless you have to get a 2-point conversion to tie, you always take the 1 point to tie that game. You got the best kicker in the league. I mean, why not tie it up and go to overtime? And those 2 games have to be crushing for the team, right? What'd you think?
I'd say so. And I mean, Huntley had played well on a few of those. I mean, I don't think he played all that particularly great today. I thought he had a good game, but geez, wow. Losing to the Steelers. It was I think it was at home for the Ravens too today.
Yes. Home game for the Ravens. Yes.
Yikes. Losing at home to cap off. I mean, if you won, you were in. So it's a situation where I think Raven fans have more questions than answers at this point. You think it's bye-bye John Harbaugh?
No. Bye-bye Baltimore Ravens. I don't have to watch in the playoffs. They're a team I don't like.
The big fan, the Ravens. Now, let me go ahead and Frank K here brings this up too. He said, what a 49er game. Now, Grump, the 49ers were another team that you needed to win in order to get into the playoffs today. And you want to talk about a crazy, last 3-4 minutes of the game and then a crazy bit of overtime. Goodness gracious, Grump.
Yeah, but think about it. The Rams started off with a 17-0 lead. They went for a touchdown and converted on a 4th and 2 or whatever it was in the second quarter. And it's 17-0. And I mean, San Francisco was totally outplayed in the first half. They come down, they get a field goal. And then they get their running game going in the second half. Deebo Samuel starts making some plays. And let me give some credit to my boy, Jimmy Garoppolo. He did the job today with a broken bone and torn ligament in his throwing hand. Somehow he was able to play while other people are not able to play with alleged ligament bone things in their little lower limbs.
Are you talking about Antonio Brown?
I'm not yet. You can discern whoever you want to talk about.
Yeah,
but I mean,
Jimmy Garoppolo too. You look at the numbers, Grump. The numbers before he threw that touchdown were not fantastic, right? He had 2 picks, no touchdown. Go ahead.
And he threw the one it was 17-17 with like 7 minutes to go in the fourth quarter. And Samuel makes a huge play, catch and run, and he gets him down to like the 20-yard line. And I flip it off for a second to go look at another game. All of a sudden, I see the scroll at the bottom that the Rams have the ball. I'm like, what happened? He threw a terrible interception. And that's what Garoppolo does. Okay. But he's also a guy who wins a lot of games. And I mean, a heroic effort. I mean, with what, a minute 50 seconds, minute 45, he drives him 85 yards down the field. A lot of it was Deebo Samuel making catches and runs. And then the young gentleman, number 15 here, Johnson, really came up big. I mean, really big today. And then when they go to overtime, they get the ball to start and they just drive the ball methodically down the field with 2 or 3 third down conversions. They have to settle for a field goal. And then Stafford throws the finishing interception right at the end. But I mean, you look at some of the plays that Cooper Kupp made today, like a huge catch on a 3rd and 6 in the fourth quarter, which led after the interception of Garoppolo, where they had just totally stalled out the whole second half offensively. He makes a huge catch, and then he scores a touchdown. It's like, wow, what a game. I mean, it was a fantastic game. Juwan Williams. I mean, just fantastic.
I mean, he's look at this. I mean, Jimmy G, you see a little bit of the happy feet here too, right? He's got pressure coming right at him in the face. I mean, it's Donald, it's additional players, and he gets a little bit of happy feet, kind of chicken arms it a bit. He finds a soft
That's
spot in the zone. I mean, look at that.
that's who he
Fantastic.
is, though. That's who he is as a quarterback. You put pressure on him, he's always throwing off his back foot. Always. Always. And he's always hurt too. I was surprised he was able to play today with this little injury.
For 49er fans, man, I tell you, you've got to be happy. This is think about how far they've got. They're one season removed from being what, the second worst team in the NFL or the third worst team in the NFL. I can't remember where they were last season. Again, they had a lot of injuries and other issues off the field. But I mean, for 49er fans, I think Trey Lance looked like he could maybe be a guy who steps into the shoes, and he looks like he's competent for next season. You've got your quarterback for the future that you can build around. You still have a very, very solid nucleus. For the 49er fans, you got to be excited about this team now and the future.
Look at the team. Just look at the whole playoff picture this year. I know it's been a crazy year, but look at the teams who've made the playoffs this year and what their records were last year. You had the Patriots. They were 7-9. You had Cincinnati, who was, that was Joe Burrow's rookie year. So they were coming off of 2 wins the previous year. He gets hurt. I mean, they were picking top 3, right? Then you have Frisco, like you mentioned, San Francisco. The Eagles, who had a losing record last year. Dallas Cowboys, who had a losing record last year. And you're going to see the Los Angeles Chargers or the Oakland Raiders, who were poor last year. These are teams that had losing records last year, and they're all making the playoffs this year. Incredible.
It tells you how that when they say the not for long, that is exactly what they mean. This is the not for long, and it's crazy how quick things can change and how close all these teams are packed together. I think that also, if it validates the reason why when coaches struggle for 1 or 2 seasons, they're gone. Right? It's not a league to where you could struggle for 2, 3, 4, 5 years. And hey, if we see that, the team's still kind of generally headed in the right direction, no. It just shows you how short the lifeline is for these NFL coaches and these NFL players.
Yeah. I mean, and that's with any sport. If you're trying to plan, 5-year plan, there is no such thing as a 5-year plan anymore. It's like you get 2 years tops and then you're out. I know the Giants, my childhood team, they say they're keeping Joe Judge. I don't even understand that logic.
We're going to talk about the hot seat, who's on the hot seat, who we think we should go to, because I mean, you're going to start seeing guys fired as of tomorrow and Tuesday and
Black Monday.
Black Monday is right. So we're going to talk about who we think the likely candidates are to get the boot. But what's up, John M? How are you doing? Drew L saying the Steelers are going to win the goddamn Super Bowl.
I disagree. Sorry, Drew.
As happy as I am to see Ben Roethlisberger make it into the playoffs one more time, you could just tell he's on his last legs.
He looks like Drew Brees at the end, doesn't he?
A little bit.
I mean, every once in a while he'll make a good throw, but man, he can't throw the ball anymore. That's what happens when you get older. Arm just doesn't respond the same after every play. Only one guy can do it.
And John M, we're going to be talking about here the upcoming college football playoff for certain. We're going to cover that ad nauseum here before our live coverage of the game tomorrow. John M also saying, Grump, how can the Finns fix their quarterback problem? I don't think Tua is the answer. I do like the head coach. I don't want to see him get fired over bad quarterback personnel.
That's the biggest mistake they've made over the last 3 years was drafting Tua over Herbert. Was a mistake. We called it here as it happened.
Draft night.
I mean, to me, Tua's arm isn't good enough, period. You look at him, it's like, man, he's got to rock back and step in and launch everything. His arm just
the Dolphins did win today. It is worth noting that. But, I mean, Tua didn't light the board up with another 109-yard performance and a touchdown.
Right. But they had a chance last year to rectify the situation when you had 5 quarterbacks go in the top 15, and they didn't take a shot at it, where to me, that was just short-sighted. I mean, if you didn't see enough of him last year to realize he's probably not the answer, and it's not about the intangibles with him, it's the physical qualities that I don't like about him. I just don't think his arm is good enough. Could you imagine him throwing, if he has to go up to Buffalo in December against 30-mile-an-hour winds? I'm sorry, he wouldn't be able to get the job done. I mean, to me, what do they do from here? I still think even though it'd be a public relations nightmare for them, they should go after Deshaun Watson because I think their team is good enough overall. They still need some more weapons. The Waddle kid is good at wide receiver. They could use another top-notch wide receiver and a Class A running back. Maybe beef up the offensive line a little bit. But their defense is pretty good, and they're a top-notch quarterback for me and a real contender.
Yep, and we're going to talk about Deshaun Watson because the Houston Texans have set themselves a goal to have Deshaun Watson traded before the NFL draft. So
there you go.
We're going to talk about that here coming up in a second too. But what's up, B Bean? How are you? Good to see you there, B Bean. And Grump. So I want to go ahead before we jump into college football. I want to go ahead and make sure we get all of Week 18 covered. So let's talk a little bit about the Indianapolis Colts and Carson Wentz. I know I'm sure there's not a lot of Indianapolis Colts fans out there, but you want to talk about
not after today's game anyway.
Not that aren't wearing trash bags over their head, but you want to talk about. I'm just talking an utter collapse. You're in a situation. You're playing the miserable Jacksonville Jaguars, and you've got it to where the Colts, right? Hey, they played well as of recent. Jonathan Taylor's chugging along. He's had a fantastic season. He's had an MVP caliber season, and you just you lose to the Jags. I'm sorry. What?
It was you win, you're in for them. I mean, it was just that plain and simple. I even talked about it on Thursday's show. I'm like, there's no way Jacksonville's going to beat Indianapolis. I remember saying that. That take didn't last too long. I don't see how you come out that flat. And here's the thing. It's not like, oh, they had a couple of bad things go their way. Jacksonville got lucky. They were dominated by Jacksonville. It wasn't even close. I mean, that's the whole thing. Before the game, they had people wearing clown suits wanting to get rid of the general manager of Jacksonville, who should be gone. I think his name is Trent Baalke. I mean, you're getting a new coach. Is that the guy you want picking your coach after he just picked Urban Meyer? It's not who I don't want to trust that to him.
I tell you, it's you're in a situation too. You look at the Colts; they lost the week before to the Los Angeles Raiders, and they lose the last week of the season to the Jags. Let me ask you this: do you think they've got a warm seat? I mean, here's Carson Wentz. I cannot believe he comes out and lays an egg like he did today. You just talk about a pedestrian performance, 185 yards, a touchdown, and a pick, and just couldn't get much going with the offense against the Jags. Okay. And Trevor Lawrence looks like he's had one of the best games he's had all season. He has been pedestrian at best as the years gone by.
Well, okay, so what happened today? What's supposedly the strongest part of Indianapolis's game? Their offensive line. That offensive line unit. They were just dominated today by Jacksonville up front. And Jacksonville's offensive line played well today. It's amazing when you give a quarterback a little bit of time, what they're able to do. I mean, it's not a mystery. It really isn't. And Indianapolis was just horrible on the ground today. They got stopped on a 4th and goal from like the half-yard line in the fourth quarter, early in the fourth quarter, when they still could have had a shot. And Jonathan Taylor got stuffed and lost yardage. I mean, that's your bread and butter play. You want to put the ball in his hands in a situation like that against the lowly Jacksonville Jaguars. And they just got stopped. I mean, you knew it was over then. And you looked at the Colts sideline, and you looked at the Frank Reich's fakes and the assistant coaches, all their faces and all the players. They knew they were done. I mean, I don't know how you come out so flat which is in essence a playoff game. Winning, you're in. Just that plain and simple.
Yeah. I'll tell you, Grump, I don't know who has more burden to shoulder. Is it Frank Reich or is it Carson Wentz? And I know the offensive line was not fantastic. I'm just thinking to myself, Carson Wentz has been a guy he'll never be the quarterback that everybody thought he was going to be when he was on the cusp of winning the MVP trophy before he tore his ACL with the Eagles. But I'm just saying, the guy has finally this season, he actually, for generally speaking, he was miraculously healthy for the majority of the year. The issue with him always year in, year out has been injuries, right? He battled through injuries this season, but it didn't cause him to miss long stretches or long periods of games like it has in the past. He strings together a full season and they still fall short.
When your team philosophy is predicated on running the ball with Jonathan Taylor and little dump off passes, they just didn't want Wentz to do anything that can beat them. I don't think he's ever been the same quarterback that he was when he was with Philadelphia early on. But Frank Reich was his quarterback coach. I thought, okay, if it could work for Carson Wentz, this is the place. But now it's really obvious they need a quarterback because I don't think their team is awful overall. I mean, they have some weapons.
Defensively, I think they're stout. I think their offensive line's great, and their run game's terrific. I mean, the wide receiver options, right? You've got Pittman, and T.Y. Hilton's a shell of what he used to be.
Yeah, but they got Paris Campbell who came back, and he was playing well at the end. I'm not saying they can't upgrade their weapons a little bit, but they need a quarterback. I mean, it all started when Andrew Luck just
inexplicably quit.
I'm retiring. I mean, I'm not blaming him any way, shape, or form, but it certainly caught them off guard for certain. And then it's like now you got to find a quarterback, and it's tough. Like here they are, 9-8. So they didn't make the playoffs, but what are they going to be picking? Like 17, something like that. So it's like, what are you expecting from them? I mean, you expecting a top-level quarterback to fall to them? Maybe Kenny Pickett will be available. Maybe that's somebody they could pick up.
Now, you talk about the Colts. This is a team. I mean, Reich's been the head coach, what now? This is his 4th season?
No, I think this was only his second
season. He took over in 2018, Frank Reich.
Okay. I thought
this was his 4th year. This is his 4th year with the this is his 4th year with the Colts.
I don't think so. So.
Coach 2018 was 10-6. Coach 2019 was 7-9. 2020, 11-5. This year, 9-7.
I didn't think there was any way he was there for 4 years. I 2018. Okay. I thought this was only like his second year, maybe third.
No, and the thing is, the reason I was wondering too, I don't think he's on the hot seat. Like there's always a coach or two that shocks everyone when you say, how the hell was this coach fired? Because there's always something that we're not privy to as the fan, but the ownership group and the general manager is, and they say, hey, we're expecting your team to do XYZ. We add in Carson Wentz. We expect the record to look like this. In reality, it's not. I don't think Frank Reich's on, I don't think he's got any heat under his seat, despite, losing to the Jags the last game of the season, which prevents them from making the playoffs.
Yeah, not yet. I don't see that either. They need a quarterback. The front office needs to do something to get a quarterback. That's their biggest issue.
Tony G saying Joey Chestnut and the grumpy old man. I must be Joey Chestnut. Hey, it'll make you happy to know. After we got done with our Islanders podcast last night, I ate myself a little quick 5 hot dogs, and baby, I'm feeling good. Oh man, I tell you, Grump, there's nothing better than about 5 or 6 hot dogs after a good long podcast. B Bean is it? What's that, Grump?
Disgusting.
B Bean is saying, is it too early for you two to make Super Bowl picks now? LOL.
Way too early.
I don't know, Grump. I could pick early favorite. I mean, like I could pick. I mean, right? We could pick early favorites as to who we think are going to win the Super Bowl.
Okay, go ahead, go for it.
I think out of the AFC, I think you're looking at. I think the AFC Championship game is going to be between the Chiefs and the Bills.
Chiefs and the Bills.
Well, hold on.
It's not possible.
I say the Bills are the 3 and the Chiefs are the 2. So never mind, that's not possible. They would face off 2 weeks from now. So whoever wins that game between the Chiefs and the Bills is winning the AFC. I think the Titans have no shot in hell. They are going to be getting back Derrick Henry, and they're going to have technically that bye week. So you're talking about adding a huge weapon for the Titans. I'm sorry, I'm not all that sold on the Titans. Ryan Tannehill's not a great quarterback. He's a game manager at best, and those quarterbacks, when limited, it really makes it. I mean, your coach has to call a fantastic game, and you have to have a lot of breaks go your way. The Chiefs have been playing really, really, really good football as of late.
They're shaky as hell. The last couple of games, they look really, really shaky. Okay, here's my take on the AFC. It's a crapshoot. It really is. If Derrick Henry comes back and is even 90%, I'm picking Tennessee because they're the most well-balanced team. They can play defense. They can run the ball. Julio Jones caught a touchdown pass. A.J. Brown is healthy again. I don't think Tannehill's a great quarterback, but when Derrick Henry's running the ball, he doesn't need to be. That's when he's at his best.
What stops a team from stacking everybody in the box as the season gets cold and as you start playing teams? I mean, like I know they've got the home seat. As it starts to get cold in Tennessee, Grump, ball is not going to be zipping as much, and it's going to be a little more difficult to throw the football. Stack everybody in the box, and I mean that's when your quarterback really has to be able to make a throw when relied upon.
So you're saying putting 8 guys in a box?
I'm not saying that. It all depends on formation and what you see out there on the field. I'm just saying the
Oh,
Titans going into this. I mean, Julio Jones is busted out. He was
oh,
nothing of what the Colts had, or I'm sorry, what the Titans had expected when they traded for him. You got one wide receiver option really in AJ Brown, and you've got one running back option in Derrick Henry. The
oh,
offensive line's good, the defense is pretty solid, but I'm just saying there's a lot of holes on that team.
okay. But you have AJ, I'm sorry, you have Derrick Henry. Everybody knows he's going to get the ball, and still what he rushes for 150 yards a game and how many touchdowns. Stop him if you can. And the more resources that you put to stopping him, that opens up for AJ Brown. I think it's with him back healthy is really the key. Like I said, I don't think Tannehill's that great, but I think AJ Brown is a really good, tough wide receiver. And Julio Brown, if he can make a couple
Julio
of
Jones.
plays,
Julio Jones.
Julio Jones, I'm sorry, if he can just make a couple of plays, and like I said, he looked okay today. I mean, the whole thing is they've had to battle through adversity to get that number 1 seed. That gives
And
Derrick Henry.
it doesn't bother you at all. You talk about the Chiefs looking shaky. It doesn't bother you that they barely clung on to beat the Houston Texans by 3 points. That doesn't like show signs of shakiness for the Titans.
They were up 21-0. They're up 21-0, and
And
they
won
took their
28-25.
yeah, they took their foot off the gas a little bit. And once again, they had a lot of guys still out. They've played an NFL record 88 players this year. They're battle tested. They've gone through adversity. Mike Vrabel is a really good coach. I said I'm going to run all the teams down. Kansas City, to me, defense is shaky. Patrick Mahomes is. You're seeing guys. Kelsey's not as fast. He's not getting as much separation as he had in the past. They're all playing 2 deep safety, so Tyreek Hill is not going to beat them on the big splash play down the field, and he's having a nickel and dime it down the field. That's a problem for Kansas City. They barely beat Denver yesterday. Barely beat them yesterday when they had something to play for. And to me, I'm not saying that Kansas City can't win. I just think everyone has holes. Then you're looking at Buffalo. I think they're too Josh Allen centric.
I was about to say Buffalo is a team that I think has taken a step back. They kind of have to refine that identity too. And I was wondering, right? Like, could they sneak up? Could they find a way? Because Buffalo, you look at last year, right? They're big bad Buffalo Bills, and this season has just been a disappointment by every stretch of the imagination. And I was wondering, could they sneak up? Are they a team that kind of doesn't necessarily put off a whole bunch of warning signs for a team, and they're able to sneak off and win a few games in a row in the playoffs?
They could, because their defense is double tough. They have a really tough defense. They can play in nasty weather, and it's all going to come down to my biggest issue with them is the fact that it's Josh Allen or nothing almost. A couple of weeks ago, they started getting Devin Singletary more involved in the running game, and it was working for them. But anytime they get into a tight situation, it's Josh, we're going to put the ball in your hands. You do whatever you got to do. Now, the kid's tremendous, right? Throwing the ball into tight areas, escaping the pocket. He's really, really good. But if you can scheme around him like the Patriots has done in the past, you can stop them. And then we'll look.
Do you see the Patriots pulling off a win or two just because of Bill Belichick?
No. And the reason is they haven't beaten anybody good this year either. No one. Their biggest win was beating the Chargers. So, and it depends on who they play, right? They're either going to play the Bills or the Bengals. I mean, that's it, depending on who wins today. They play the Bills or the Bengals. I think they probably want to play the Bills because they've had success against them in the past. And even though Josh Allen all by himself beat the Patriots 2 weeks ago, you got to remember when they had that really nasty weather game in Buffalo, all they did was run the ball on Buffalo the whole game. Mac Jones only threw 3 passes, and they were able to dominate them. I mean, and I think that familiarity, Belichick knows how to play against Josh Allen and the Bills. I think that's an advantage. I'd still pick the Bills in that game. The Bengals are the team that could surprise.
How?
Joe Burrow got super hot at the end. You have Jamar Chase and T. Higgins on the outside with the sprinkle of Tyler Boyd and Joe Mixon. And you realize Mixon, Chase, Higgins, and Burrow are all under 25 years old. That's a team you're going to have to watch out for in the future. Think about where they were last year. You go ahead,
How much?
smirk.
No. How much? Okay. I think you could definitely say that about T. Higgins, and you could say that about Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow. Running backs, historically speaking, unless you're a fantastic back, are not good after that first contract. Joe Mixon's a guy who's had injury problems already in his young career. I'm just saying that's a guy to where maybe 2 years left in the tank and still he starts hitting on the downside. He's not an ultra physical back. He's not a guy who's 6'4", 6'3", like your Derrick Henrys. He's not weighing 240 pounds like Derrick Henry does, right? When you look at those guys, he's a smaller guy. I'm just saying Joe Mixon, he's probably playing the best football he can right now. He maybe have 1 or 2 years still left at his prime, and then he kind of hits the downside, which is still good for Bengal fans, right? I mean, Joe Burrow is really stepping in. He's the last 2 weeks he's looked fantastic. Sometimes this year he's kind of looked Jekyll and Hyde. The last 2 weeks he's looked fantastic. Jamar Chase has been unbelievable this season, and T. Higgins has followed up with a really, really strong sophomore campaign.
I'm gonna tell you, I am sick and tired of you dumping on Joe Burrow. Even when he's doing well. How many games has he played in the NFL? 20?
20 plus.
All right, this is his second year. And he's led a chronically terrible team to the playoffs in his second year. After, mind you, only playing 5-6 games last year and tearing his knee up. And he came back this year.
All I'm saying is he's got a lot of weapons around him.
And he's a good quarterback too.
He is a good quarterback. I'm just saying, right? If he doesn't have, he had 2 monster performances at the end of the season. If he doesn't have those 2 monster performances at the end of the year, I think we're singing a different tune. 2 freaking games changes your entire picture and the layout of him. All I'm saying is his body of work. Sometimes he looked freaking atrocious on the field where he was missing wide open guys, zooming in too much on Jamar Chase, not spreading the love across. Again, he also has a good tight end option in CJ Uzama. I'm just saying he's got a lot of options around him. Sometimes where he gets in trouble when he zeroes in on one guy, the guy he likes is Jamar Chase. When he spreads the ball around, he doesn't zero in on one guy. I think he's a better quarterback. That's something he's had to work on this season. I think he's done that in the last few games.
Do you think maybe it's because the offensive coordinator realized that and kind of schemed up other plays? No? Okay. Because T. Higgins really took off the last 3-4 weeks of the season as well.
Do I think they schemed? They didn't call, trust me, not drawing up new plays. They're saying, hey, I want you to look. You're looking instead, right? Our reads and running through a progression, right? You're always looking here. This always needs to be a read man on this particular play. When we're seeing a safety high, you're looking at this wideout. Instead, you're looking and feeling more comfortable. I'm saying, I don't know. Again, I'm not sitting in the quarterback room, but that's usually what happens. They're not drawing up new plays.
Okay. So in other words, he learned pretty quick too. I'm just saying, I think you drastically undervaluate this guy for some reason. And I think he's fantastic. And I
expect a lot from him. That's what
he's going to be one of the stars in the league.
I'll tell you what, too. He'll be a top 5, top 10 quarterback in the league for years to come.
I mean, the NFL has to be really happy. You got to remember, after Brady and Manning, it was like there was nobody for a long time.
Brady, Manning, and Big Ben. Those are your 3 guys.
And you had
Rodgers, and Rodgers 5, and then Rivers maybe 6.
When all those guys started aging out, like 3 years ago, it's like, man, where are all the quarterbacks? Where are the good young quarterbacks? Now you're seeing Herbert. You're seeing Burrow. Gotcha. You're seeing Patrick Mahomes. You're seeing Josh Allen, Dak Prescott. I mean, and it's always when you say, oh, the NFL, there's no quarterbacks who can play. You see them spring up. And I think even Kyler Murray.
Yep.
It's just interesting.
But yeah, let's move on a little bit to the NFC too, Grum, because we got a lot to cover today. So Let's move on to the NFC. You've got the Buccaneers. They're facing off against the Eagles in the first round. You got to feel like the Bucs are taking home that victory.
I wouldn't count on that.
Okay.
I think the Buccaneers.
I don't think the Eagles are pulling off a win. Jalen Hurts Jalen Hurts he's a guy who will never be a fantastic quarterback. He's a guy who's a game manager. He's a guy, once his legs start to die a little bit on him, he's just average. Jalen Hurts is nothing to worry about, I don't feel. Are you really worried about Jalen Hurts and the Eagles offense? I'm not.
Tampa Bay's really banged up. They've
also been resting a lot of guys. But, that being said.
They're not resting anybody. They're hurt. There's a difference between resting guys and they're hurt.
Here's the thing. At the end of the season, once you feel a little banged up and you're kind of hurt, coach is saying, we need you for playoffs, especially if you're unable to play. I know that the text messages exchanged between Bruce Arians and Antonio Brown say a different story, but from personal experience, that's at least what I've noticed. So you might see a few players that have been inactive the last few weeks just magically popping up as healthy this week. That's all I'm saying. Just be on the lookout.
Okay,
Um,
I'm not
you've
saying they
got
can't come back, but they've been legitimately hurt. They're on injured reserve. You don't rest a guy and put him on injured reserve. That means they got to miss 3 games.
you've
Shaq
got
Barrett, JPP, Leonard Fournette. I mean, Godwin's not coming back.
Fournette's been out now for 3 weeks, okay? So, like, when he got hurt, they knew he wouldn't be back for the regular season. They said they're just hoping he's gonna be back in the playoffs. I'm saying there's guys like that they with their rehab, they had expected. So, that's all I'm saying. You might wanna pump the brakes a bit. The
Okay.
Eagles are miserable. The Eagles are bad. Think about it. The Eagles came away with a 9-8 record when they played the miserable Giants twice. They played the Washington football team twice. They had played, the Dallas Cowboys twice. That is a very, very weak division, and you've got the Eagles coming out with a 9-8 record. All I'm saying is I don't expect much out of the Eagles.
Okay. That said, Tampa Bay is a much better home team than road team. So that's an advantage. I'm getting the 2 seed. I mean, it was so crazy. Almost every scenario had them being the 3 seed. And then all of a sudden, Dallas was the 4 seed after last week's loss to Arizona. And all of a sudden, they jump up to the 3. And it's funny, the Rams losing again, their 6th in a row to the 49ers, dropped down to the 4 seed. And now they have to play the Cardinals again. So
Yeah, I was about to say
it'll be
the
interesting.
Rams. I was about to say the Rams and the Cardinals and the Cowboys against the 49ers. Call me crazy. I'm telling you, that Cowboys and 49ers game, I think, is going to be a good matchup, Grump.
The Cowboys, I think the Eagles were the only team with an over better than 500 record that they beat this year. I don't think, or maybe they beat one. Oh no, they also beat the Patriots.
Here's the thing. The Cowboys defense is a defense that is able to thrive off a pass rush, right? Good pass defense, good defensive back. So look how many picks Trayvon Diggs has. Look at all these pressures Micah Parsons is putting up. The 49ers are not a pass-centric team. They're a run-the-ball right down your throat type of team, wear the defense out. I think that does not play into what the Cowboys defense's strengths are. So, it's not a good matchup defensively for the Cowboys. And when you talk about, again, like what they could do on the offensive side of the ball, that 49ers defense is stout. I'm actually going to pick an upset there. I guess I'm picking the 49ers over the Cowboys in that area.
One thing, there's no quitting the 49ers. I'm not saying there's quitting the Cowboys, but I think if you punch them in the mouth, you can kind of hurt them a little bit. And I think that the 49ers have a big head coaching advantage. I really do.
And so who do you have against the Rams and the Arizona Cardinals, Grump? I mean, both of these teams, you look at, take the clock back 4 or 5 weeks ago, these are supposed to be the 2 toughest teams in football.
Yeah, Arizona was the number 1 team. Arizona was the number 1 team in the conference, and the Rams, even though they're a wild card team, had the second best record. So I'm going to pick. I tell you, I'm going to pick Arizona in that game.
You think Arizona, even with all the struggles, they're going to come back and win?
Yeah. Yeah. I just don't like what I've seen in the Rams.
I'm picking the Rams, and I'm picking them to win. If I'm picking a team out of this side, don't be shocked with the Rams. That's all I'm going to say. Don't be shocked if the Rams find a way to make their way to the NFC Championship game.
Well, here's the thing. If they get to play Tampa, they'll beat Tampa. If they play Tampa, they'll beat them.
So what's your way too early Super Bowl champion?
It's way too early.
Well, that's the point. It's the way too early Super Bowl champion. That's why
I would say Tennessee and the Packers. Why not go chalk?
Oh my God. No freaking way. The Tennessee Titans are not that good. They're not making it that far. You're delusional if you think that's the case. Here's my pick, Grump. I think the Packers don't make it. I think it's going to be the Rams against the Chiefs. Mark that down. That's my way too early prediction. I think the Rams against the Chiefs is what we're going to be seeing in the Super Bowl.
Rams cannot beat Green Bay. They will not beat Green Bay.
Green Bay, I'm telling you, the warts seem to come out on a few of these teams, and I'll be interested to see what happens. But Grump, we kind of jumped in a little bit on that. But hold on, he also says BB and said, seriously, Bob Saget died?
Yes, I heard that today. And for me, he was young, 65. That's young. The older you get, 65 is not that old. It's kind of shocking. I remember initially where I was initiated with him was on the show Full House when it came out in the 1980s.
Yeah.
And just kind of, what a shame. What a shame. Didn't know he was sick. And he was a real dirty mouth comic. You wouldn't think that for, he played, I think his name was Danny Tanner, whatever that his name was. But yeah, really a shame. Really a shame.
And then I'll have to get to it, Drew L, for the Steelers reaction through the DMs. John M said, Go ahead, Grump.
One thing I just want to say one thing. In that Rams 49ers game today in Los Angeles, I want to say at least half the crowd was 49ers fans.
I was about to say, so even though it's a home game, it's not so
It's
much.
Los Angeles. See, it's Los Angeles. I know the league wants to have teams in Los Angeles, but their fans are like the worst. They are the absolute worst fans there are. I mean, yeah, you want the sure, I'll sell you my ticket. It's like a status thing for them to have tickets.
I got just season tickets. Oh, I have season tickets. Oh, yeah, we don't go but to this game every year.
It looked like the whole lower bowl was 49er fans. I'm like, what?
John M saying the Finns don't have a top 16 pick. Deshaun Watson's their only option. I'm cursed being an Islanders, Mets, and Finns fan.
It's a bad mix. It's a combustible mix right now.
I was about to say it is a very combustible mix.
But the solution is right there. They wouldn't go after Drew Brees when they had a shot because they got a little gun shy over the shoulder injury. How'd that turn out? Still looking for a quarterback. And Deshaun Watson wants a play there. I know there'd be a little bit of public uproar, but you know what? He puts a few W's on the board, and people are going to forget about all that stuff. The one thing Deshaun Watson has done, which has been really intelligent, and Antonio Brown has not been able to do, is just able to keep his mouth shut. People will forgive you for things. Just keep your mouth shut.
Yep. And again, everything dies down. Forget, right? Kobe Bryant was charged with rape. Wasn't he that lady?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Nobody even talks about that anymore.
Think about Big Ben. Didn't he have issues with sexually assaulting women in clubs and bars and on video, no less?
I don't know if it was on video, but
yeah, it was on video.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, if you just keep your nose clean, if you're smart, I'm not saying you can get away with stuff, but stuff dies down because there's always some new turmoil, somebody else getting into trouble coming down the street. So if you just are smart, and Deshaun Watson has been smart, kept his mouth shut, he'll be back in the league. I think he's done his punishment now, and the league will reinstate him. Well, they've never suspended him,
but they've never suspended him. Okay, but yes, remember if they were to have traded him and they tried to play him, they would have suspended him
because that's the NFL, the gutless dogs that they are.
Anyway, Drew L says here also go Raiders.
The Raiders.
The Raiders are right now up 10-0 over the Chargers.
Wow. Okay. Raiders. I mean, they got hot at the end too. Think about their combustible season, right? The John Gruden saga. Totally looks like the team's going to tank. Derek Carr has really stepped up the second half of the year. Good for him. He's a likable guy. I don't think he's the greatest quarterback in the world, but he's been really, really clutch this year, and good for him. Good for him.
Yep. Now let me ask you here, Grump. Now you're talking about, we've talked about again, like the last crazy day. The Saints beat the Falcons, but it's all for naught. The Saints are on the outside looking in with their record. What were they, 9-8 this year?
You know what? No, this is what you heard from Tampa. Whoosh. That's the last team Tampa wanted to play.
Was the Saints for the Saints?
Saints beat them every time they play them.
Except last year in the playoffs.
Yeah, that's it. Bruce Arians, except for that Tom Brady game in the playoffs, Bruce Arians has never beaten them as head coach. Never.
Well, they did beat him last year in the playoffs, and they could have maybe done it again. I was every time the Buccaneers lose to the Saints, I'm just in utter shock because the Saints team is just a ragtag team. The Panthers looked like they were giving the Tampa Bay a little bit of a scare early on today.
Tampa Bay's come out flat the last number of weeks. Same thing against the Jets. Brady guides them on a drive in the last minute and 50 seconds of the second quarter to take the lead, and then it's off to the races. And it's amazing. Rob Gronkowski had to have something like, I think, 7 or 8 catches today and 80 yards to get $500,000 bonus for each. And wouldn't you know, he got both of them. If Antonio Brown could have held his water a little bit, he could have had another $1 million in bonuses, but he choked away. They made sure that Gronk got those bonuses today. They sent him and Brady out for one more play in the fourth quarter just to get Gronk that pass. And as soon as he caught that pass for that extra $500,000 off, they both came.
Well, talking again about, finishing up, the Lions cap off their season with a win over the Packers in a meaningless game for the Packers.
I have a question for you. Is that enough to get Dan Campbell another year?
Yes.
Oh,
yep. Dan Campbell will get another year in Detroit. Not saying it's right, wrong, or indifferent. You talk about guys on the hot seat. Dan Campbell is not on the hot seat. I think Dan Campbell will be drafting a quarterback in this year's upcoming draft.
All I'm going to say,
I think you're going to be probably selecting a quarterback at number 2 overall. And guess who it's going to be?
he's not going to draft. They're not going to draft quarterback number 2. Not going to happen.
Okay.
I want to tell you a team I was impressed with down the stretch. New York Jets. I like what Robert Saleh's done. Since Wilson came back from his knee injury, he looked much better, more under control. I know they lost today, but they were very competitive.
Yeah. Well, again,
then you look cross town.
I don't know what you're talking, Grumpy. Because you got some indigestion or something going on.
I'm sorry. Then you look cross town and you look at Joe Judge and the Giants, and it's like you got to just shake your head. That's what I do.
They say Joe Judge is not on the hot seat. That son of a gun better be on the freaking hot seat. I'm sorry. You cannot let him you cannot let him coach a team another season. I know the general manager, right? Gettleman is gone. Yet the gentleman agreement, they're gone. The Giants have 2 picks in the top 10 this season. You have to assume they're looking for a quarterback too. Daniel Jones can't be the answer at quarterback, right? You can't possibly say, let's go another season with Daniel Jones, because the team isn't all that bad. And the thing is, if you were to add an additional, hey, we've got 2 more top 10 picks, we've got more selections coming around, I think it would be hard. You'd be hard pressed to say, hey, they would finish with a worse season, where they'd finish with less than 4 wins next year.
Okay. Now I ask myself, Joe Judge, who's supposedly safe, told Daniel Jones, oh, yeah, you're going to be back next year. You're going to be the quarterback. That should be a fireable offense in itself.
That type of stuff drives me nuts. It really does. And I think to myself, right, you look at this year's upcoming draft real quick to flash it over. Here's the draft order, right? You talk about the way too early draft order. You've got the Jags with the number 1 overall selection, the Lions number 2, the Texans number 3. Well, let me ask you this. Are the Texans looking for a quarterback if they're planning on trading, right? Because let me flip over here, Grump. I'll show you. Deshaun Watson. They want Deshaun Watson traded. The Texans have set a target to trade Deshaun Watson before free agency opens on March the 16th. So they want to have him traded and moved out before the NFL draft.
There you go. No problem there. He's obviously not going to play there again. Make your move.
Well, my thing is, are the Texans going to look for a quarterback? You got a lot of teams. Every year, there's always teams that are hungry for quarterbacks. Right, wrong, or indifferent, quarterbacks always get overselected. Are the Lions going to say, yeah, Jared Goff, you're the quarterback here for the future? I know we only strung together 3 wins, and it was a meaningless win against, the Packers at the end of the season. So really, it was like 2 wins and a tie, but we did get that consolation win at the end of the year. You've got the Texans, right? They have no direction at all as to what their future is looking like. Are the Texans saying, yeah, we feel comfortable with Tyrod Taylor at quarterback? The Jets have the quarterback hole filled. You've got the Giants at 5, the Panthers at 6, and the Giants again at 7.
The Texans seem happy with Davis Mills.
Yes, that's for Davis Mills. You think you're just going to roll with Davis Mills? No issues?
I think they'll give him another shot. I said it's not a great quarterback class. So there's nobody who's a surefire top 10 pick. And Jaguars aren't looking for one. There's no way the Lions are taking him 1 and 2. No for the Texans. No for the Jets. The Giants, I don't know. If Joe Judge is any judge of what he says, they're not looking for one. The Panthers seem to like what they have in Sam Darnold.
Hold on. The Panthers are still happy with what they have in Sam. Let me ask you this: is Matt Rule on the hot seat? Right? We'll tie this in too. Which one of these which teams that have these early picks, right, that didn't make the playoffs? Which one of these teams are going to be, coaches to where they have to worry about being on a hot seat? I think you look at it. The Jets have the Seattle pick, right? Pete Carroll for the Seattle Seahawks, he's got to be gone, right? You feel like he's going to be, it's all she wrote.
No, I think that he's going to be back. I think Russell Wilson will be gone, though.
You think okay? So Pete Carroll's an older coach,
unless he steps down. I don't think they'd fire him. He might step down.
Yeah, I think they ask him to leave. Let me rephrase it. I think they're going to ask him to leave.
Okay. Well, then let's give it 50-50 for that. Jaguars, that's an automatic yes. Dan Campbell, to me, he's got to be gone. I don't know if they will. Maybe they give him another year. I say 75% gone. Texans said they're bringing David Culley back. Robert Saleh is going to be back. Supposedly Joe Judge is back.
That's a big freaking mistake too. Like, you look at the mistakes. I mean, Texans head coach, you don't have much to work with. You're just literally trying to revamp up and add assets. I mean, you're full fire sale mode for the Texans. Dan Campbell, you give him one more year, you see what he has. If they're sputtering out, I mean, if you don't finish with at least 6 wins as a Lions next season, Dan Campbell's gone.
Yeah, okay, he should be gone.
They don't have much to work with, and he inherited a hideous team.
I don't care. He's not a
Same
head
defense
coach.
they use for the Texans.
I don't care. He's not a head coach.
Okay, so what about Matt Rule and the Carolina Panthers?
Matt Rule is supposedly going to be back next year.
Yikes.
I'm just saying what I've heard. Is Smith going to be back for the Falcons? Yes, they'll give him a second year. Vic Fangio has already been let go by the Broncos.
Yep.
Then we're looking at the Jets again. Salah will still be there.
Ron Rivera is going to stay.
Ron Rivera will be back. Mike Zimmer's an interesting question.
He's got to go. Zimmer has to freaking go. Zimmer has got to goddamn go. Mike Zimmer has to go. I don't know how often, I don't know how many more times the Vikings need to see just ineptitude when it comes down to big plays and important time periods of games. And he's an awful, awful, awful game. He's an awful game time coach. Awful. You have good weapons. You've got Dalvin Cook. You've got Adam Thielen. You have Justin Jefferson. You've got offensive line options, right? Kirk Cousins is not a bad quarterback. The defense is good, and yet you finish with an 8-9 season. I'm sorry, it's just not good enough.
Okay. I say 50-50 there. And let's go with the Bears at number 7.
Hold on. 50-50?
If he will be fired or not. 50-50.
Mike Zimmer. Okay. No, seriously. Give me the reasons why Mike Zimmer should keep his job.
I'm not saying he should. I said the chances of him getting fired is 50-50. That's what I said.
I'm asking you to substantiate and then give me a reason why you think it's only 50-50. And you just said, I think it is. I'm asking why.
I think you could do a lot worse than Mike Zimmer. He's been there a long time. I'm not saying he should stay. I'm telling you who will be fired. And Nagy will be fired from the Bears for certain.
I just want to pop up. Okay, before you keep going, Mike Zimmer last 2 years has been 7-9 or 7-10. I mean, they finished, or I'm sorry, they finished 8-9 this year because they did wind up winning the last game. So you're looking at, again, just pedestrian year after year after year. I'm sorry. When we talk about the not for long, he's been the head coach since 2014. He's been there up now for 8 seasons with the Vikings. They've come away with 2 playoff wins in 8 seasons. He has had certainly long enough to build a team around the way he would like it. You'd like to think that Viking fans would want their team to actually make a damned run in the playoffs. It's a not for long.
Okay.
It's not the, hey, we're okay being mediocre.
Okay. I look at his age, and maybe they use that as an excuse to let him go. I don't know. But 3 years ago, he was hailed as like one of the best coaches in the league. I'm just saying. So then you're looking at the Bears at number 7. Nagy will be gone. The Seahawks at 10. I think it depends on if Pete Carroll wants to leave. He's in his 70s, so it could be the end for him. 13 is the Browns. I think Stefanski gets another year. Ravens, there's no way they're letting go of Harbaugh if he wants to stay. And I don't see any way that Flores gets let go. The only thing for me that's concerning with Flores is that a number of years now, 2 out of the 3 years, he starts off really poor, and then they play better down the stretch. It's like, why are you always coming off so poor at the beginning of games? You're at the beginning of the seasons. You're almost out of the playoff hunt in the first month.
Okay, Grub, I'm going to interrupt, man. Take a breath, get you some water, because I want to go ahead and interject here a bit. Now, Browns, you think Stefanski is going to be back for an additional year? I don't know. I mean, I heard rumors that the Browns and Baker Mayfield are kind of having a little bit of a parting of ways in that sort. I mean, Baker Mayfield was hideous this season. Awful. Not a quarterback in the league that can win you games. Just not. He's going to be a journeyman quarterback for the rest of his career. Not a good quarterback. You think that they're going to – I mean, Stefanski was calling the offensive plays as well. I think that he has a little bit more of a burden to bear when you talk about coaches that maybe have made fireable offenses. This Browns team last season was a team that was, a few plays or a few drives away from beating the Chiefs and maybe making their way to a Super Bowl appearance. And this year they fall flat on their face. They have the Odell Beckham issue. They don't get anything going offensively. They look anemic. maybe they're going to say, oh, we had a lot of COVID issues. We had injuries that are a running back core. You got to give us one more year. I don't know. I got to think, Stefanski's seat's getting a little hot. And if it's not this year, it's next year if he doesn't really turn around.
How many years has Stefanski been there?
Stefanski?
Yeah. How many years has he been there?
I can pull that up.
Please do, because, you just want to get rid of a guy after a year or 2 years. They made the playoffs
Do
last.
not have long leashes.
Okay, but they made the playoffs for the first time in 25 years last year, and you want to just cut this guy loose?
He's been there 2 seasons.
2 seasons, and you say
11-5 last season. And what are they? 8 or did they win today?
Yes.
So they're 8-9 this year.
Okay, so they had a down year. It happens. I'm just saying you just don't throw out the baby with the bathwater. You just don't do that.
I'm just saying, if it doesn't turn around next year, I think he's gone. I'm just saying, you look at the talent that team has. There's no explanation that really rationalizes why they struggle as much as they do. Except, it's either one or two things. Baker Mayfield is a hideous quarterback, or Stefanski is just cannot get all the talent to line up and pull in the same direction. Their defense is stacked. Their defense is fantastic. Myles Garrett, that defensive line is stout. The linebacking core is pretty good. The defensive back core is really, really solid. And you look at it, they've got the best running back tandem in all of football. They've got an outstanding offensive line. They had wide receiver weapons. Well, had is the key word. And they have tight end weapons. What's the issue?
Maybe it just takes a little while to get the loser out of you. They've been a bad team for a long, long time.
Okay. Takes a while. I've never heard that. Maybe it takes a while to get the loser out of them. Alexander says, hey guys, good evening. On my way back from the Finns game, shopping at Publix. Oh, how sweet it is. How sweet it is.
They always beat the Patriots. In the last game of the year in Miami, they always beat them. Always.
You also said Ross came out and said that Flores and Greer are coming back. I was about to say, you keep Flores. The guy, what do you finish with a winning record this season? I still think the quarterback is, Tua is not the answer there. That in the end is what's going to really hurt Flores unless they can get the real quarterback.
All they need to do is go out and make a trade for Deshaun Watson, and I think that elevates them to contender.
Overnight, I think they're division favorite.
Buffalo's still pretty tough.
I think they took a little bit of in my opinion, they took a little bit of a step back from last year.
That happens. It happens. Everything's not an ascent all the time. Sometimes you take a little step back. Well, guess what? They were great the beginning of the year. Then they slumped, and then they've resurrected themselves ever since that Tampa Bay game, honestly, Buffalo. And, they look like they could be a threat in the playoffs if they could just be a little bit less reliant on Josh Allen. I think that's the real big key, to kind of diversify the attack a little bit.
Well, Grumpy, we're about halfway through the show. Do you know what time it is, Grump?
It's ad time.
It is ad time. Hockey fans, DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NHL, has a no-brainer offer that will make you a winner once a single shot gets past the goalie. New customers can bet just $1 on any NHL game and win $100 in free bets if either team scores. The NHL got rid of ties in 2005, so somebody is going to light the lamp. If Sportsbook isn't available in your state yet, no worries. Everyone can play for huge cash prizes all season long with DraftKings Daily Fantasy Hockey contest. DraftKings is giving all new customers a free shot at millions of dollars in total prizes with their first deposit. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use the promo code THPN and throw down $1 on any NHL team and win $100 in free bets if either team scores a goal. That's promo code THPN this week at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NHL. You must be 21 years or older in New Jersey, Indiana, or Pennsylvania only. New customers only. Minimum of a $5 deposit and $1 wagers required. One per customer. Restricted supply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for full details. If you have a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. You're on mute, Grumpy.
Good job, TJ.
Oh, goodness gracious, Grumpy. You're slipping, Grump. You're slipping. I'm just giving you a hard time. But that kind of covers what we wanted to talk about regarding the NFL today. And again, as the draft gets closer, we'll cover the draft and items of that nature.
I'm pumped for the draft already. I love the draft. NFL draft is a great time of year.
The NFL draft is a great time of the year.
Great.
I tell you, it for certain is. Now, tomorrow, a big game. You've got the SEC championship rematch of Alabama against the Alabama Crimson Tide against the Georgia Bulldogs, Grumpy Old Man, in the
Dogs. The
playoffs.
Dogs.
The Dogs. Go Dogs. Now, let me ask you, Grump, who do you have as favorite to win in this game against Alabama and Georgia?
I'm picking Georgia.
What's your reasoning behind that?
I want Georgia to win. Just as plain and simple as that. I want Georgia to win, so I'm going to pick them to win. How about that?
Fair.
Nothing wrong with that. I'd like to see
Fair
Kirby Smart beat Alabama just once. And why not in the biggest game of his career? Why not?
Kirby Smart has, and again, will this be the first time we see the Georgia Bulldogs finally kind of get rid of that albatross across their neck and the Alabama Crimson Tide and Nick Saban? This is a team that they have struggled against mightily. And I mean, even take the clock back to a few years ago in the college football finals. I mean, when Tua had to come on and save Jalen Hurts and the Alabama Crimson Tide to win that game, and I think it was in overtime.
Yeah, they just, for some reason, that's the one team that Georgia's been unable to beat. That said, Alabama's played one really good game all year, and it was against Georgia in the SEC championship game.
They looked dominant. They
were dominant in that game. But then they went back against Cincinnati and kind of played like they had most of the year, kind of uninspiring, not super physical. I think tomorrow is going to be a great game. And I actually think it's good for Georgia that they lost to Alabama last month. I think that's actually going to pay dividends for them.
I think again, I think Georgia, I go in a little bit with Georgia being a favorite, as odd as that may sound, despite them really, getting it taken to them by Alabama just a few weeks ago. I think Georgia, I've got the slight edge for Georgia in this game tomorrow, Grump. I do. I think to myself, it was nice to see Georgia really bounce back. I had criticism, and other people have shared the same criticism. The SEC East was not great this year. And you look at a few of those wins, you say, okay, at the time period, they were very, very big wins against Florida, a big win against Kentucky. And you look at those teams at the end of the year and you're like, oh, yeah, they actually lost quite a few games. I mean, Florida was nowhere near what they originally were, expected to be. They beat Clemson by 3 points. Clemson wasn't all that great this year. And you look at a few of those wins, you go, okay, really, where is Georgia on the barometer? I'm talking about, they had to tuck their tails in between their legs against Alabama. They got beat out of the stadium, and they come out, and I'm talking about they dominate Michigan. And I think that's to say, yeah, it was a one bad game against Alabama. We're not overlooking them. We're ready for them. We didn't come with the right mindset. We're ready to go for the college football finals.
That's what I think also. I really firmly believe that losing to Alabama, particularly in the way that they lost, they can't say, a couple of
if we did this differently or that differently, if we made one catch here, it's a different result. No, they just lost. I mean, and there's no way to skirt any type of personal responsibility by saying, okay, the ref made a bad targeting call at the very end of the game and it cost us a touchdown, or the ref did this, or we missed a pass here, or this happened. It wasn't like that. I mean, it was just a thorough domination where you had to look inside and say, hey, we weren't good enough. We didn't play our style. How are we going to fix that going forward?
And I think that is a great motivator for a good team. And Georgia is a very good team.
They're fantastic.
Yeah, I think that's a really great motivator. Maybe they weren't prepared for the physicality that Alabama was going to present to them in the SEC championship game, but they know what to expect going into this game. They really do. And I like that scrawny little quarterback they got too.
Who do you mean? Bennett?
Whatever his name is, the little scrawny kid, number 10. Isn't he number 10?
You're talking about Bennett, right? Sam Bennett?
Yeah, whatever. I don't remember his name. Stennett?
No, Jesus, man. Stetson Bennett.
Stetson Bennett, that's it.
Yeah, I was about to say Stetson Bennett.
Well, I'm going to merge the names, like they did with Brad Pitt and who was he married to?
Jolie.
Yeah. And,
shit, Grumpa, you're right.
Whatever, all those names, Murner. So I'm going to just call him Stennett. How about that? Stetson Bennett is now Stennett.
Do you ever see those commercials where like, try Priogen? This is, it's your jellyfish, like jellyfish or something like that.
Oh, why? What does that do for you?
Grump, I think it helps with brain function. It helps with memory. I think we can get you.
Mental sharpness. I like
mental sharpness before the game. We're gonna have to get you. How players take some PEDs to perform ahead of time. We're gonna have to give you some active jellyfish ingredients to get you ready for game time. Get you ready for podcast time.
Very, very good, TJ. TJ taking shots at the grumpy old man. I like it.
I do what I can. Alexander's saying, yeah, that loss to Vegas, the Colts and the Jags killed us.
I just don't get that. Oh, well, for the Dolphins. Well, yeah. The Jags one is the one you can't lose.
And again, that was a game that you lost
It was
right
in
at the end.
London, right? Was
Horrible.
that in London?
Yeah, it was. They went for it on fourth down about at the 50-yard line. Do you remember that, Grumpy? And they missed it. They didn't get it. They didn't get it. And the Jags having to move the ball. They remember they had to kick off to determine what kicker kept his job. And they moved down the ball downfield, and the field goal kicker hit the kick right as time expired.
That was when Urban Meyer was still trying to throw games every week so he'd get fired. And it didn't work until, finally he had to do enough obnoxious things where he had to get canned. But yeah, that was terrible. Cannot lose to Jacksonville.
I want to show you, speaking about this too, and we got more comments to get to, but did you happen to see what both coaches came out and spoke about here, both Kirby Smart as well as Nick Saban before game time? Or before, in their interviews, they had spoke a little bit about name, image, and likeness deals. Did you happen to see what that entailed, Grump?
They were a little bit unhappy.
We had talked about this beforehand, and they're unhappy is right. Maybe they're unhappy because Texas A&M is walking away with the best recruiting class in the nation because their boosters paid $30 million to sign their recruiting class, and they come away with this, based off of all the metrics. They have one of the largest recruiting classes in the history of college football, and average stars is higher than any other recruiting class, as well as a composite score. This is supposed to be the best recruiting class in the history of college football per recruiting sites like 24/7 Sports, ESPN, Rivals.com. This is what it's heralded as at the moment. And it's not a shock that we're starting to see this. And I don't disagree with these statements because I do believe that the name, image, and likeness deals are causing issues. I really do. Nick Saban says name, image, and likeness is a positive thing for players. And
can I read the statement and add what Nick Saban really thinks at the end of each sentence?
Yes.
Name, image, and likeness is a positive thing for the players. They've got an opportunity to earn money. Like I really care. I don't think that's a bad thing. It's terrible. What is concerning is that it's used to get players to decide where they're going to school. They didn't pick us over somebody else. I don't think that was the intention. We need to pay more money to get kids to come to our school than we used to, and we misunderstood that. That's what the whole thing is about. He's unhappy that they didn't spend the right amount of money to get those players, and he's pissed off, number one, first and foremost, that Texas A&M, who's in their conference, did.
And Jimbo Fisher, ex-assistant of his, is getting number one recruiting class in the history of college football. I mean, hey, Alabama's still a good recruiting class, but then when they see their opponents and they see a rival that's in their division of the conference in the SEC West pulling off better recruiting classes, you go, oh shit, hold on a second, and you look at Texas, the money that Texas has coming up, and go, oh shit, right? They bring in Quinn Ewers, who was the number one overall recruit in last year's class. You just say, okay, now all that money in Texas, they're going to be in our SEC West. Oh shit. Okay, we got to watch out for this. And you just see all the money that floats around with these teams. And you think to yourself, oh God, you're right. I do think he's right here, though. You're going to see the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. And now this is what Nick Saban had come out and said. I don't disagree with any of this. I think name, image, and likeness is good. That being said, did you see what Charlie Batch came out and did?
I did not. I just want to say one thing to that, though. We called this.
We called this at the beginning of the season. And I even said,
as soon as it came out, we called it.
I said what I think was going to happen. I said, you put your tinfoil hats on, ladies and gentlemen. I said the NCAA wants this to run as wild as humanly possible, to where you're going to start to see the fans, the coaches, and everybody starting to ask for more regulations around this, because we already knew that the players were already getting paid, ladies and gentlemen. It just was happening underneath the table. The $100 handshakes, the, hey, can you go work a job for me here at this XYZ corporation? We're going to pay you a certain dollar amount. That stuff already happened. It already happened. Now it just allowed them to make the money, where it's more transparent, and they could get paid a little more too in the process. But this was already going on. And we had gone over that. This, I'm telling you, they wanted to let this go as wild as possible and as many nonsensical items as possible that would happen, so that you would be begging for the NCAA to come in. Oh, NCAA, please, we need your authoritarian arm to go ahead and control everything once again. That's what they wanted. All they care about is the power. And they were going to lose the lawsuit. So they said, here you go. We're going to let the gluttons and the pigs at the trough overeat. And then we're going to come in and put them on a diet. And we're going to put everything back in our order. Charlie Batch, though, grumpy old man, was asking Caleb Williams, the quarterback for the Oklahoma Sooners, one of the top quarterbacks, one of the top freshman quarterbacks from last year. And he said, have you considered Eastern Michigan football? If not, you should. A game above capital is prepared to offer you and pay you $1 million for 1 year of football if you're ready to be playing for Eastern Michigan. So now you have players that are in transfer portal where they're saying, hey, come here, come play for us, come play for us. Here's $1 million. Oh, here's $2 million. This is the only reason you should come play for us, right? Hey, here you go. We'll just have you bounce from school to school to school to school. It's ridiculous.
This is what you're going to wind up seeing. It's just like when free agency first started. You're going to see people just throwing money at all these kids. And what you're going to find out is eventually going to happen is that there's going to be so many guys that are busting out in these positions or not getting their money's worth that you're going to see them be more selective with who they give the money to and how much they offer. That's the way it always starts. And eventually it will settle down. And I mean, you have a head coach in essence trying to buy another player. But you know what?
Charlie Batch is not a head coach. Charlie Batch is the old quarterback from Eastern Michigan. Do you remember him? He was an all-pro quarterback. He used to play for the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Okay, I thought he was coaching there. Okay, my bad. Sorry.
No.
I just think it's interesting that you're seeing this. And I mean, like Caleb Williams, he played it smart, right? He was the undisputed number one quarterback at Oklahoma after Rattler transferred. And he decided, you know what? I'm going to go in the portal and see who can offer me what. And what was that? What's that used for?
Leverage.
Oklahoma, you want me back? You're going to have to pony up some cash.
I'm getting an offer of $1 million to go play for Eastern Michigan. Or, hey, let's say a team that's on a comparable level of Oklahoma. I've got Michigan, who's just offered me a deal. Grumpy old man. They just offered me a deal for $750K. You know, McNamara has just left in a portal. I'm just using hypotheticals here. I've got an offer now to play for them for $750K. Hey, what are you going to give me next year that's going to give me more money than them? Hey, I want to stay with you guys, but I need at least $500,000. I need a $1 million. I need $750K. Here it is, ladies and gents. I think that the fact that players can get paid on their name, image, and likeness is good. I do not like, though, now you're going to see that the teams in the college football programs and organizations that have the deepest pockets and the most money with alumni are going to magically overnight transfer into the best college football programs in all of football. And the teams that, let's say, are not as wealthy of an institution and don't have as wealthy as alumni and backers, well, you're going to see those teams kind of fade off into the sunset. And guess what? You're never going to have them compete with recruiting classes because they can't offer the money.
The only thing I would like to see, honestly, is that these kids have to sign a contract for so many years. What I don't want to see is them hopping from one place from year to year to year. I think there should be some type of stability. First of all, it's not good for the kid, to be honest with you, to go from one program to another to another. They're not going to develop as players like they should. And at the end of the day, it's going to hurt their earning power in the NFL because they're not going to get picked as hard because you're getting picked on performance, not just athletic ability, if you know what I mean. I mean, you could be the greatest athlete of all time, but if you can only complete 2 out of 16 passes because you're running with different receivers every year, I think it's going to drop your draft stock. So just something to consider. I think they should have some type of contract formula that said, okay, you're going to have to stay here at least 2 years or maybe 3 to get paid that money.
Okay. And Grump, wanted to go ahead and also show you this. Now, these were Kirby Smart's quotes. And again, because both of these coaches were asked about this in interviews, Kirby Smart saying, you're going to see the haves and the have-nots. And the separation is already there, and it's going to grow. It's going to grow larger. I do agree with that. You're going to see, again, the haves and the have-nots continue to separate between them, where you don't like to see that. I mean, everybody's going to be looking like a Northwestern out there in the field, and then every other team that's got all the money in the pockets is going to look like an Alabama or a Georgia. Just how it's going to be.
Do you remember when this first came out and they said, oh, no, this is good because the lesser schools are going to be able to buy some of these players? And I said, That's no way that's going to happen. The big schools are going to get everybody.
Let's paint it right. They said that this is going to close the disparity between teams because now you can offer a guy to go to, let's say, a school that is not as prominent. Like, let's say you can offer a guy to go to Kentucky, but you can now pay him, right? So now you can entice him to come here to Kentucky. And hey, Alabama's going to have their pick of the litter, but for Kentucky, right? They've got some money to pony up, and if you can get a big recruit to come there with a big name, image, and likeness deal, that should go ahead and level the playing field. What they failed to mention is, again, the teams that have the most money are the programs that, again, already have the fantastic facilities. Those are the people where the donors are currently at the moment. It's the reason why all the facilities are fantastic. It's a way of inadvertently trying to convince players to come in. Now those players can just say, no, those donors could say, all right, I'm just going to play the player. I'm just going to pay the player. I own 1 million Wendy's. Let me go ahead and slap him on a Wendy's real quick. I'm going to take a few pictures with him. This is the home of Caleb Williams. And now I'm going to go ahead and just pay him to stay here.
And I think the thing that bothers and smart,
it's a lie, and everybody saw right. We saw right through that.
We saw right through it, of course. And anyone who listens to this podcast saw through it immediately. I think the thing that bothers Saban in particular, and maybe Smart a little bit, is the fact that it's guys in their own conference who have deeper pockets, like Texas A&M. Because when your selling point is, what's the difference between Texas A&M and Alabama besides record? They both play in a super conference that gets exposure every week on national TV. Scouts are there all the time. But now, if I can make more money playing for Texas A&M, who's going to be in all these big games, they're not a loser team, as opposed to Alabama, where I'm not going to make nearly as much because it's Alabama, I'm going to pick Texas A&M. And I think that you'll definitely will see that. And I don't blame the kids for taking the money, honestly. I really don't.
I don't either. And they also say here, the schools that have the capacity and the ability to be and are more competitive in the name, image, and likeness market are going to be the schools that step ahead of the top on the top of other schools. True. So I don't want recruiting decisions to be based on that. But ultimately, a lot of young men want to make their decision based on that. And I don't blame the kids either, right? Hey, are you going to be able to pay me as much? It's the same reason. Like when people take jobs, they might like a particular company, they might like a particular area, but when it comes down to it, are you going to pay me more than a guy next door, right? Because all it comes down to how much money are you going to pay me. My loyalty goes as far as your dollar was willing to stretch. So, and when you add that element in there and have no regulation authority, no like regulatory authority over the top of it, it's the Wild West, and we talked about it before, and it is.
And when circumstances are similar, like teams in the SEC who are in bowl games every year, you're going to go for the money. Now, you're not going to see somebody go to Piddly Pup U if they offer a little bit more, because in the long run it hurts you. So, but you see a team like Texas A&M, they're a good school. They beat Alabama this year. Maybe that has something to do with it too. He doesn't. Nick Saban doesn't like that he got beat by Texas A&M this year, and then beaten in recruiting too by Jimbo Fisher of all people. So maybe that kind of aggravates him too. You never know.
Okay, Grumpy. I do want to say not all players are just bagging the name, image, and likeness money. I will tell you that much. You've got here offensive lineman Tyler Linderbaum. He got $30,000 from his name, image, and likeness deal, and he kept none of it. He donated all to the University of Iowa Children's Hospital. That's where, and again, maybe some of you guys are familiar. Every home game, they wave at all the kids at the Children's Hospital right across the street from the football stadium. And again, they usually have, like, if there ever is, college football game days ever in Iowa, they usually go ahead and showcase it because it's a big part of the team and that local community doing that. But I did think, not all players are pocketing every penny they earn in name, image, and likeness. To be donating the $30,000, good for him.
Yeah, good for him. If I was his dad, I'd probably be smacking him upside the head going, it's a good thing to do. Don't get me wrong, but he's getting paid that money to perform on the field. He should be cashing in on that.
All I'm going to say is this guy is going to be one. He's
not criticizing.
He's a penciled in first round pick. He won the Remington for the best center this last year.
Oh, okay.
He was a number one. He was a first team All-American. And he was a first-team All-American this year and last year. So
Okay.
the guy's penciled in to be an early pick. So
Okay.
I guess
That does make a
worried about it.
difference. Does make a difference.
I was about to say, if you're a guy who doesn't have a chance to make it in the NFL, I'm sure you're not saying, "Hey, I'm willing to suspend $30,000 where that could really help me in the future." But that I'm just saying, not everybody is using their money. Grumpy old man. Some people are doing good things with it, and I always like to point out those good stories as well. B Bean says here, Alabama 29, Georgia 24. I will tell you this much: I think the game will be close. I don't
Yes.
think it's going to be a blowout like it was the first matchup. I do believe tomorrow's game will be a close one.
Started off 10-0 Georgia, as I remember.
Yeah, and then Bryce Young kind of turned it on.
Yeah.
Alexander said, I hope Georgia wins.
So do I, Alexander.
And he also says, yeah, but there's the thing with Watson. You got to mortgage your future for one guy on a team that has a lot of holes. I don't think Miami has as many holes as you think it does. I think their defense is pretty strong and stout. I think the offensive line does have holes in it, but Deshaun Watson, issues aside, is a fantastic NFL player. And he's a fantastic quarterback. Having a good quarterback in the league masks and it will cover up a lot of those issues.
Top 5 in the league, right?
It's like, what's that?
Wouldn't you say top 5 in the league?
When he's able to play, he's a top 5 quarterback in the NFL. I do agree with that. Yep.
I mean, to me, do you want to win or not? I don't care what you got a mortgage. You had the picks previously, chose not to do it, which I thought was dumb. You're a quarterback away from being a legitimate contender. The AFC is since Tom Brady left and Kansas City had to take a step back when Mahomes got his big contract extension. Well, guess what? It's like anyone can win in the AFC. Why not put yourself in that mix? Because it's not going to happen with Tua Tagovailoa. It's just not. I was less impressed with him today than at any other time, and they won. I just don't think his arm is good enough. He scrambled out of the pocket. There's one play he scrambled out of the pocket, and he had a guy wide open down the field, and he missed him by 15 yards. He was short. Just don't have the arm. Just does not have the arm.
B Bean also says, didn't you guys pick Georgia in the first game also?
No, I picked Georgia. TJ picked Alabama.
I picked Alabama in the first game they played. I just always thought that Kirby Smart had an issue with facing off against Nick Saban. And I just think they're playing inspired football at the moment. Georgia is, and that kind of kick in the teeth and a kick in the mouth that they got from Michigan, or that they got from Alabama originally. I think you saw it. It paid dividends in how motivated they were against Michigan. I mean, that Georgia team was playing Georgia football, and yeah, they even had a few mistakes in the second half too. They really could have run with the game even more than they did. And I think Georgia, though. I've got Georgia this in the second half, though. The rematch, I've got Georgia.
TJ knows more about college football than I do. So
I watched too much football. Alexander saying Flores got out coached in that game too, talking about the Jags.
No, I don't know about that. I think they were just trying to outsuck one another.
B Bean says, shame on you, TJ, picking on the grumpy old man.
Yeah, that's right, TJ.
I understand. TJ, I just showed you the reason why we lost in Vegas. It was a PI call that wasn't called. I try not to look at those because every single game there's a lot of awful calls. I mean, we do, and I feel like it's like anytime we show them, it's like you look at it and say, oops. You look at it and you say, okay, if there were calls that were missed earlier on in the game too. I mean, like we did that once for an Oklahoma game, and I was like, I'll pop it up on screen here, but against Vegas, Grump, I'll let you be the arbiter of what is right and what is wrong here on this, whether there's a call or not.
As Brissett was the quarterback then. Yeah, I guess they're going to show the replay.
It's in overtime. He got there a little early, but
it's tough to see where the ball. But he was full of drop. Then of course he comes up hurt.
Why is the play a bomb?
Again, I never understand these coordinators.
Is that pass interference by the letter of the law? Yes, that's
you're not going to get that call in overtime. It's just not going to happen.
Again, like it's tough to say why they're not. Okay, all you need was a field goal to tie, and here you are bombing the ball from the 40-yard line. You're running fly patterns. Like I'm not quite necessarily catching and understanding the offensive play calling here on that. But you have time left. You had 4 minutes left on the clock. Was that a pass interference by the letter of the law? Yes, it was. So
you're never going to get that call in overtime.
In overtime, they bury those whistles. Doesn't matter whether it's a call or not. They've they've let a lot worse go in overtime. You think about the Saints, the pass interference call, and again, I'm not a Saints fan, but the pass interference call against the Saints when the Rams, I think it was Jalen Ramsey, hit the Saints wide receiver about two or three, or maybe about a second or two well early before the ball got there. No call was thrown. Like that one, you're like, holy crap, how did they miss that? It was just because it was on the fourth quarter. It was right when the game was dying down. And
And
you think to yourself, I'm like, oh yeah, they just don't want to call anything. They want to be as abstinent as possible when the game's dying down like that.
let the players decide the game. That being said, that was a pass interference, but there was no guarantee they were going to score there. Yes, it looked like they had a shot to, but New Orleans had the ball first in overtime, and Brees throws an interception. That's what cost them the game. If he had just executed some plays in overtime, they would have won there. You have to execute plays.
B Bean says name, image, and likeness in the transfer portal equals the free market equals the American way. I think they should get paid.
Yeah.
I think they should. I think there should be some sort of regulation. The same thing like when you talk about, hey, I don't want to say they have to put like a minimum dollar amount these players can get paid.
No.
But it's one of those things where I'd like to see the players get paid because the colleges and the universities and college football has made millions upon millions of dollars off the backs of those athletes. But I do think with no regulation, the rich will get richer, the poor will get poorer. And as that continues to happen, it's just going to further separate the haves and the have-nots. Just as Kirby Smart said, I couldn't agree more.
What you're going to see, you see crazy money get spent, and then you're going to see it after a few years. What's the reward? It's like a risk reward thing. And you're going to see the prices come down a little bit, and they're going to spread the money out a little bit. I don't think you're going to.
What do you mean they're going to? What would make a guy who graduated from the University of Miami of Ohio say, okay, now all of a sudden we want to go ahead and throw some more money into the football, right? The donors are always going to be there for the Miami Hurricanes. The donors are always going to be there for the Texas Longhorns. The donors are always going to be there for the USC Trojans. Their donors are always going to be there for the Penn State Lions. There's certain spots where the donors will always be, and there's certain spots where the donors will never be.
But maybe they're going to say, you know what? I gave you $1 million for this kid. He didn't pan out. I gave you $1 million for the next kid. He didn't pan out. I'm going to give you maybe $500,000 for this.
Okay. Look at it like this. They don't care about the individual kid panning out. They care about the team winning games.
And if those kids aren't
producing, do that by bringing in good players, right? And if your team's winning games, it's all that's needed. If the team's not winning games, the coach changes. And if the coach changes, then you've got a whole different pitch to the guys for the donors. Yeah. So it's on a case by case basis. But when there's a strong donor base and a strong group of people that have the ability to pay and can pay, they say, okay, terrific, tax write off. Here's my business expense. I'm going to go ahead and stick Archie Manning's. Who's a young Manning who's going up there? I can't remember his name. Arch Manning Jr. I'm going to stick Arch Manning Jr. on the front of all of my McDonald's, and he's going to have a little, hey, come eat at McDonald's. Come eat over here. We're going to pay him $2 million.
You're going to see just like it happened.
Expense for advertising.
You're going to see just like it happened in free agency. Initially, when free agency first started, backup shortstops were getting ridiculous amounts of money because you could. You're going to see where the big guys are still going to get their money, but the little guys are going to get smaller and smaller because it's just business. It's good business. That's what you're going to eventually see. Not right away, but eventually. That's what you'll see.
The middle tier guys aren't getting paid that much, Grump. It's not like that's the case. The big guys are getting paid hand over fist.
Mr. Lyman.
Jackson State just went ahead and got another tweener between a 4 and a 5-star recruit, and he signed himself a big name, image, and likeness deal to go to Jackson State. Another one of those who went to the to Deion Sanders head coached HBCU school.
Yeah, I understand that. Who else is going to go to Deion Sanders school unless you're a wide receiver or a cornerback? Nobody else is going there.
Okay, we'll see. I didn't think, let alone one, maybe 2 5-stars were going there this year, but we'll see. Tony Shee is saying here, nobody's offering an offensive lineman $750,000 to play college football. TJ, this hypothetical situation is absurd. Hey, man, I threw the hypotheticals out. And B Bean said, what would $1 million do to the Eastern Michigan locker room?
See, that's the big thing.
I think it would work out well for them to a certain extent, right? I mean, Caleb Williams is getting paid, but now you have more eyes and media attention that goes to Eastern Michigan, and now maybe you'll have some local businesses that will trickle down. You're not going to get paid much, but maybe let's say you made $10,000 last year, name, image, and likeness. Now you maybe have a local Applebee's franchise owner say, "Hey, I'm going to give the team an extra $10,000 a piece too."
My concern is you're giving a kid, and I think Caleb Williams is not one of these kids I'm going to describe, but let's say a kid who has never had any money before, and you give him $1 million and it turns him into an asshole, because money can do that to people, right? It doesn't matter, who you are, but it can. And then all of a sudden your teammates, you kind of alienate your teammates because you start, hey, I made $1 million from, blah, 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 blah.
People don't do that stuff.
Oh, really? Really? You're talking about
some blah, 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 blah.
You're talking about 18-year-old kids. They're not adults. They're still, to me, they're still children. Okay?
Everybody uses a child, Grumpy.
I'm just saying, if somebody gave me $1 million when I was 18 years old, I would have been, yeah, look at me. Absolutely. You're 18. You're not fully developed at 18. You're not.
What can I do in the locker room? Here's the thing. Anytime you have a big transfer like that, if let's say they do move, he's head over heels probably the best player on the team when he walks in day one. He's getting paid more. Maybe that causes some resentment in the locker room, but I'm going to tell you, you'll have more press, you'll have more media, and you could possibly turn that into, more dollars and cents coming into the name, image, and likeness deals. One of the crazy thing I just thought of, you're about to see all of these teams probably get name, image, and likeness specialists and consultants for every single one of these teams of how I can maximize the name, image, and likeness dollars coming in. I'm going to pay somebody, let's say $60,000 or $70,000, and their job is to go out to local businesses and to find out how we can get name, image, and likeness deals for certain players that come in, and they can match them up. I think you're about to start seeing jobs pop up for name, image, and likeness consultants or assistants, something like that.
Sounds like a job for you.
That you and the two watches, grumpy old man. Let me see those two watches there. Jesus. There it is. Alexander said, TJ Grump, did you see? Sorry to bring this up, but did you see who passed? Yeah, it was Bob Saget.
Yeah, we spoke about him earlier in the show. Shame.
And John P. saying, Happy New Year, gentlemen. By the way, rest in peace to Bob Saget. Yeah.
Hard to believe he was 65 years old. Just so you see, particularly TV people, you see reruns, they all look young. Like, man, look at how old he is. I saw a picture of Gene Hackman. DJ, know who Gene Hackman is?
Name sounds familiar.
Okay. He played Popeye Doyle in The French Connection, won Academy Award for Best Actor in 1971. And then he was also won an Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor, playing the sheriff in Unforgiving in 1992. Man, he'll be 92 years old this year. Yeah, look at how old he looks there.
Oh my, yeah, this guy on the left, was he in Men in Black?
He was not in Men in Black. I just told you what he was in.
I
just freaking told you. There he is right there.
Black. I think he's in
Popeye Doyle. Yeah, he's old, man. 91. He's, he quit acting a while ago. And, he's starting to look pretty old now.
He's getting up there in age, Grumpy.
Yeah.
That's for certain. Yeah, I'm pretty sure he was in Men in Black.
He was not in Men in Black.
And maybe the second or the third one. Maybe one you didn't watch.
He played the blind man in Young Frankenstein. It was a cameo role.
Alexander said, and they need to work on that offensive line. Watson will not survive behind that O-line.
That's the one thing they do need to improve the offensive line. But here's the thing. The draft picks they've made to fortify the offensive line have been bad picks. That's on Chris Greer.
Yeah, definitely doesn't help out when you're missing on those. Just like
they had such an opportunity to turn that team around with better selections. And I remember us talking about on draft night. It seemed like
Waddle was a good selection. I mean, like there were certain ones that were good. Like, hey, you give them a check and an A+ on. Other ones you're just like, what the hell are you doing?
Jackson. I mean, that was a reach for Austin Jackson. Yeah. I mean, the cornerback. Oh, the kid out of Connecticut. I think he was the cornerback, wherever the hell he's from. He can't even get on the field. It's just dumb. It's just poor asset management.
John P. here saying, my sad Jets, 13-10 with 8 minutes to go in the game. Final score, 27-10. The Bills, 9 sacks on Zach Wilson.
The Becton kid's out. They're still
he's had an injury-prone first 2 seasons. You kind of start to worry a little bit about him. If he has another year with an injury-riddled season next year, I put him as an injury-prone guy that will never be able to stay on the field.
Remember, he's carrying a lot of weight. a
He was
lot of weight.
extremely athletic and I mean,
Yeah.
he's extremely athletic though for his size.
Yeah, but he's still carrying a lot of weight. I mean, every time you take a step, it's not like a 200-pound guy. Guy's like what, 350, 360? I mean, and that's in good shape. He's 360. I mean, that's still a lot of weight pounding on your feet every single play. It just is. Don't worry, John. I think the Jets I like how they improved over the second half of the season, and I think Saleh could be a very good coaching selection for them.
Mhm. Remember, they gave up what was like a third or second round pick for him. So I mean, they definitely understood and they liked what they saw in Saleh. That's for certain. Tony Chi saying Chad Pennington's kid committed to Marshall. Maybe he could throw the ball further than 15 yards.
Oh, Chad Pennington, before he had those multiple shoulder surgeries, was able to throw it 20 yards. Don't sell him short, Tony.
And Tony Grumpy, you'll like to see this. Tony sent me an article. Did you happen to see this? The Jets and the Giants are being sued.
Why?
They're being sued by fans for their fans of the Giants and Jets they launched a lawsuit demanding $6 billion for both teams to leave New Jersey and to play home games in New York. And they wanted $2 billion for monetary damages and $4 billion in punitive damages. So they're upset that they brand themselves as New York's football team, NFL team, but they do not play in New York and they play in Jersey. And they cite items like, hey, it's tough to get here. You talk about travel, mass transit, etc. Car service is a nightmare, blah, blah, blah. And Crump, I just want to ask you, what are you thinking about that?
That's a lawsuit that will go nowhere. And that's the worst thing they could do. No problem, New Jersey. Guess what? We'll play in New York and screw you. Now have fun trying to fill that stadium.
Hold on. What are you talking about? I don't think you're understanding.
They're pissed off that they call themselves New York. Right? And they're playing in New Jersey.
The fans are correct.
Okay. Who cares what the fans think? It doesn't
matter. The fans are the people that launched this lawsuit. That's what I'm saying.
Like I said,
launched the lawsuit.
It's going nowhere. You know what I thought the $4 million was going to be for pain and suffering?
Billion with a B.
Okay.
$6 billion total. Billion with B's,
okay.
Not M's.
I mean, how close to the judge's desk does that get before it just burns up on its own? They just wasted their time and effort doing something stupid like this. I thought they would say $4 billion for pain and suffering of having to watch them play. That's what
honestly, when Tony Cheese sent this to me, I thought to myself, okay, maybe people are just making a little jest or a joke saying, hey, after all the pain you've put me through, $2 billion for punitive damages and $4 billion for XYZ. But the Giants have issued an official statement and the response to the lawsuit declaring that this case has no merit and we will defend it vigorously. And we will defend it vigorously. The Jets have not commented on the matter just quite yet.
Fans have absolutely zero say in anything that pertains to that. Zero. Absolutely nothing.
Oh man, I loved it. I loved it though. Here's the thing: it's one of those where you just say, "Yeah, I don't know how much it costs to file something like that, but I think it's literally just was to make headlines. That's all.
$15.
I'm about to say I don't know how much it is to file something of that nature, but I think it was all just to make headlines.
Look at me. Look at me.
Alexander said, "Enemy of the State" with Will Smith.
Yeah, that was good. Gene Hackman was in that too.
And then
he was in The Conversation, which was really, really good. The Conversation.
John P. saying, grumpy old man, you hit the nail on the head. Money can turn even mature adults into assholes, let alone young people. Sadly, I've seen it firsthand.
True. Absolutely. Now, John, if you want to give me $1 million, I would be the same as I am. So I would never change because there's no shame in my game. I'm always the same.
Alexander's saying, yes, TJ, Gene Hackman was in Men in Black. I believe was how I read that.
No, you probably think that he was the Rip Torn.
Who's that?
Just go to the next comment. You're just embarrassing that you know.
Who's Rick Torn?
Rip Torn is probably who you thought Gene Hackman was.
Oh, yeah. It's this guy. Yeah, and they had the other old guy in Men in Black.
What guy? I don't know. You're not putting anything up.
Yeah. You gotta give me a sec. And they got the other older gentleman here who he plays in like comedies. Who's the other guy that plays in comedy roles? That's guy,
Rip Torn.
No, there's the other guy who was Men in Black, who was Will Smith's partner.
Tommy Lee Jones.
Maybe that's who I thought he was.
Well, Rip Torn is dead also. and Tommy Lee Jones does not look like Gene Hackman. Just to let you know.
Oh man, Tommy Lee Jones. Well, yeah, Tommy Lee Jones looks a little bit like Gene Hackman, maybe.
No, he doesn't.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, maybe
Yeah,
maybe
yeah.
he did a cameo. And
No, he didn't. He was never in the freaking movie. All right.
Alexander said here, but how can he see the field when they have Howard and Byron Jones ahead of him? But why draft it? Why draft a corner like that if you were so ready for the position?
I don't think no. Well, it's not like you just play two cornerbacks.
I mean, like, okay, unless you're rolling out there with the nickel package, like you're not.
Everybody plays nickel most all the time. How many times you just playing with two corners and two safeties? How often is that? No, nobody even runs a two running back offense anymore unless it's goal line. Everything's single. I'm sorry, Alexander. I'm not getting angry with you. I'm not. I'm just like everything is single back now, right? And you pass catching tight ends, which you have to cover with either a corner or a linebacker. Everybody's a nickel all the time, and then dime a lot of the time. Nickel is 5 DBs, dime is 6.
All I'm going to say here is this: they've had a few questionable selections in the past. I mean, they've done a great job of acquiring picks. Unbelievable job on that side.
Just
A+.
lack execution.
Well, Waddle was a good selection. They had a few really good selections that have panned out for him. Others, you're just kind of sitting there saying, okay. And here's the thing: I'm not ready to give up on a guy like Austin Jackson yet. I told you with the draft day special that evening, I said he's a guy that he's a guy that's very raw. He's got a lot of items that he still needs to work on.
He's too light. He's too light.
You could put some pounds on him, though.
You're going to burn a first-round pick on somebody who's got 2 years of growth to him?
I was a second-round pick.
No, he was first-round pick for them.
Okay, he was
one of the plethora of first-round picks. He was one of those guys picked way too early.
Yeah, I was about to say, yeah. I mean, they've had quite a few picks here to bone up, and we're going to start seeing whether that's going to pull out there for him. Yeah, Raekwon Davis, he really hasn't done much there. Maybe he has. I don't watch enough. I'll be honest, Grump.
He's been okay. He's been okay, but I mean, they just overdraft guys where there were better players at certain positions that were very, very similar, and they didn't go for those guys. I mean, you don't have to pick the corner first or the D tackle first or running back first. You can just, any way. Just depends on how the board falls.
Alexander said, when you think of Tua, do you think of Drew Brees? He's a short guy, not a big arm. I thought Drew Brees used to have when Drew Brees was younger, he used to have a pretty big arm. I'm thinking back when he used to, I mean, like, am I wrong to think that? Again, he benefited from playing in a dome, no doubt about it. But I mean, I didn't think his arm was all that bad, Drew Brees's. I mean, towards the end, he couldn't throw the ball more than 5 yards down the field.
Yeah, that was age thing. But he didn't have the greatest arm in the world, but it was better than Tua. Look at Tua the way he throws.
I think Grumpy is going to be hitting a little bit of technical difficulties here at the moment, but no worries. I'm sure he's going to be talking about looking at the way Tua's throwing motion is. He's got to crow hop into it and crank his body, and it doesn't look 100% fundamentally sound. I'm just going to fill in what I think Grumpy's going to be saying.
Yeah, you probably did it right. I mean, he's got to rock all the way back and
holy shit. I didn't even have to continue because that's exactly what I said. You had to crow hop into it and crank, and the fundamentals don't look fantastic when you got to throw the ball long downfield.
Just look the way he throws it. That said, I just want to say Jalen Waddle set a rookie record for most passes caught in the history of the NFL. Good for him.
And you talk about, I mean, that's a good you look at how many of those Alabama receivers have kind of been, they haven't really panned out all that well when they're selected into the NFL. I mean, like Henry Ruggs before the accident, he was, you look at, Jerry Jeudy. Yeah, but you can say maybe he doesn't have the quarterback, but I'm just saying, you look at a lot of those wide receivers from Alabama, when you have a whole bunch of fantastic wideouts or really good wideouts, it means that, you're always going to have, you can never double team or really to spy on or to zone in on one individual or to kind of lock in on one individual, which leaves the field more wide open. So like, it's the same thing I used to say with the Clemson defensive line back when they used to have really stout defensive line. I mean, like, it's tough to find, hey, who is the actual individual that makes this defensive line so stout? And I mean, Waddle has been a fantastic addition for the Dolphins. No doubt about that.
Yeah, without a doubt. I think they still need another wide receiver, maybe a better possession guy. I've never thought Parker was that good. and he can't stay on the field.
Tony Chi saying Carl Sagan, billions, Grump.
Okay.
And then Tony Chi saying, I wonder if that guy can get countersued.
Which guy?
The guy from the Jets and the Giants who's suing the Jets and the Giants.
No, that's why they do it. 500. Any Jet fan, sign a petition. Do you like the New Jersey? The whole state of New Jersey signed a petition.
Oh, Alexander said, I know, Grumpy. Love you, man. And he says, Howard has bad knees, domestic issues, and Iggy can't play inside. He's a boundary corner.
I don't think he's that good.
John P. saying, Gene Hackman, the Crimson Tide with Denzel Washington. Great movie.
See, I didn't like that movie. I didn't like that movie.
I do want to show you, Grump, because Ken Rosenthal was fired from MLB Network. I want to show you. This happened on Dan Le Batard's show, and I want to show you kind of what this is. It's a different take, and I never really had thought of it this way, and I want you to listen to it. First off, before we get to the take, Grump, what did you think about Ken Rosenthal getting axed?
And for anyone who doesn't know, Ken Rosenthal was cut loose from MLB Network. He was one of the only reliable reporters that they had, investigative journalist. A couple of years ago, he criticized Rob Manfred for his handling of the COVID situation. And Manfred took it personally and wanted him gone. He was suspended for 3 months initially for no reason, just like, well, we don't need you for 3 months. And then when his contract came due, they did not re-up it. And it was leaked that it was because of that he was critical of Rob Manfred. Now, once again, you have to remember that MLB Network, just like NFL Network or NHL Tonight, those are all really propaganda arms for the sports that they represent. And you better not say anything that makes the sport or the commissioner look bad, or you're going to pay. They are what I would call the media cartel for those sports in particular.
Yep. And yeah, you got to hear Alexander. Ken Rosenthal didn't deserve this. I don't think so either. But I want to go ahead and show you. Now, this is an interesting take on Dan Le Batard's show. And I want to show this and see if it maybe changes your mind a bit.
Exactly what he was doing when he wrote every article he wrote for the Athletic, excuse me. And I want to make sure that people are very clear how this works. NFL Network, NBA Network, MLB Network, those are owned by owners. Jeffrey used to own 1/30 of MLB Network. He would watch MLB Network after a game, and he would call me and say, call him up. Our game was the 8th highlight of the night, and we had a great win. It should have been the 3rd highlight. Call Secaucus right now.
Well, hold on. Let that shit sink in. How nuts is that, Grump?
Why does that surprise you?
It surprises me because do you really think that fans who are just like bebopping around saying, oh, yeah, I'm a casual baseball fan, I don't have a team, and they're just like, doop, 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 and they get to a spot where they say, oh, yeah, based off of today, I'm going to see how the teams look and who they're showing highlights of. Oh, yeah, I saw this highlight. They were the first highlight. The Pittsburgh Pirates made a fantastic, diving catch in the outfield. I want to be a Pittsburgh Pirate fan. That's not how fandoms work.
Okay, but that's the way billionaires work. They're used to getting their way because they are billionaires. They never tell no. They can just buy anything they want. So that I could definitely see that because their egos are huge too.
Why does it matter? Why does it matter where you are on a freaking MLB Network highlight show?
Ego.
Ego. You know what? You know how you freaking stroke your ego? Go win a goddamn World Series. Put a freaking legitimate contender out there on the field and win a damn World Series. That's how you can stroke your ego, buddy.
Okay. You want to know how they stroke their egos? By going out and buying a professional sports team. They don't care. Most of them don't even care if they win, particularly billionaires or big corporations. They could care less if they win. It's about the bottom line. I mean, I don't understand how you don't understand that. To own a professional sports franchise
organization
anywhere, think about it. How many of those are there in the world? It's a very small amount. It means you're somebody. These guys have egos.
Fair enough, Crop. I'll let you continue.
Or this is 100% true. And guess what? 30 owners did the same thing. No. They would pay attention. Every single one. I spoke to Tony Petitti about this numerous times for hours about what it was like to field calls from PR people who worked for owners or sometimes owners themselves when they were criticized, when a trade was criticized, when a player was criticized, when they weren't getting enough minutes in the highlights, when they weren't enough topics on the network talk shows. It is so obvious why people don't go to MLB.com for any information. It's so obvious why people don't watch MLB Network for anything, because of course it's biased. Of course it's done by the owners. And if you think that Rob Manfred doesn't pay attention, you're wrong. Here's the big difference. Bud Selig would watch the network, and he would call a reporter or a writer or a talking head, scream at them for saying something that he didn't agree with, and then move on. Rob Manfred doesn't do that. And you know how close I am with Rob. And this hurts me to criticize him in this way, but I don't work for him. Rob Manfred is much more stealth. Rob Manfred's not going to call anybody, especially after his interview with you. He's not going to call anybody and criticize or get angry or yell. He will simply eliminate them. Ken Rosenthal knew from the beginning that his time at MLB Network was over, and he was totally fine with it.
What do you think about that take, Grump?
I'm not shocked at all. Think about it. He's got a thin skin, Rob Manfred, without a doubt. That's not the type of guy that you want in the leadership position. It isn't. He takes everything as a personal affront, and he might be good for it, but eventually people just don't like that. Sorry.
I thought it was a different way to think of it, and I thought it was kind of unique to say, okay, I mean, Ken Rosenthal knew exactly what he was doing. He knew he wasn't getting re-upped plenty of time before, and it's just kind of an interesting way to look at that, Grump.
I expect more critical thought on Rob Manfred from Ken Rosenthal going forward, because he didn't lose his job at Fox or at The Athletic.
Well, he won't lose his job at Fox or The Athletic, and I'm sure he's going to be carrying a little bit of a vendetta, some might say, and argue against Manfred going forward in the future. And hey, if you got somebody who's looking at that, and looking at it through critical lens, all reporters should look at every single team's move or every single commissioner's moves or statements through a critical lens. That's what your job is as a reporter, to give both sides of the story where they might be wrong and where they might be right. That's what your job is, to present an unbiased story and then maybe go ahead and give your opinion after displaying both sides.
And it wasn't like he did that what he said about Manfred on MLB Network. He writes for newspapers also. And it was just something that he wrote that was in the newspapers. So it's not even like something he did on MLB Network, but like I said, Manfred just didn't like it. So that was that. He was gone.
And he says, yep, MLB Network is trash. And Alexander also said, and you see, that's a problem with all the owners and all these sports teams. You have to walk on eggshells on how you're supposed, on how you're supposed to live.
Well, they can do whatever. Okay. The Washington Football Club is a prime example. Daniel Snyder was doing who knows what, gets off scot-free, right? Why? Because he's an influential owner of the National Football League, where John Gruden, they dig up his texts and he's just gone. I mean, don't tell me that no one else in that Washington organization said anything bad in an email when you're looking at 350,000 emails. Nobody said anything except for John Gruden on 3. I just don't believe it. I'm sorry.
And then John P. here saying, love Gene Hackman and Hoosiers too. That's right. Hoosiers, yeah. And but his role as his Popeye role in the French Connection was arguably his best. And his role in The Unforgiven was a close runner-up.
Did you ever pick your toes in Poughkeepsie, TJ?
I don't even know what that means.
That was from French Connection.
You ever pick your toes in what?
Poughkeepsie. He was it's based on a true story about the French Connection drug heist back in the late 60s in New York. And that's who he played. He played Popeye Doyle. And he used to get criminals and he, roust them and says, "Did you ever pick your toes?" They're like, "What, man? You ever pick your toes? Pick your toes in Poughkeepsie? Did I see you Poughkeepsie? You ever pick your toes in Poughkeepsie?" Just something from the movie. Watch it. Educate yourself.
Okay, gotcha. I guess I'll have to, Grump. I can't say I'm familiar with it. That being said, Grump, what do you want to say before we wrap things up today? Because we're going to be going live. We're going to be going live tomorrow during the college football playoff, Alabama against Georgia, the rematch. We're going to be covering that game live. But Grump, what do you want to say before we wrap things up?
I just want to say love and laughter to everyone who listens, and even those who don't, from TJ and the Grumpy Old Man. And please subscribe, watch, listen. Join us for the podcast tomorrow. We're going to have a lot of fun in the championship game.
Always, yep. Always make sure to subscribe and like the video, and subscribe on YouTube, like the video there, like on Facebook, and follow on Twitter. But thank you again, Grumpy Old Man. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. We cannot wait to cover Alabama against Georgia tomorrow. We'll see you guys there at probably about 7:30, 7:45-ish sharp of maybe TJ Standard Time. That'll be Eastern Standard Time for those new. So we'll be going on before the game, but we'll see you guys tomorrow. Georgia against Alabama, the big rematch. Who takes home the college football playoff? But until then, have a great evening, and thank you again, Grumpy Old Man.
My pleasure.